Oh, I
one else
haven't
to
had
do.
a phone call in weeks.
How am
What
I
are
going
you-
to afford my Werther's Originals now?
Brothers,
Those are
My
pretty good.
my
grandson
bowl is
loves
empty
it.
and my grandchildren are on the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got Kit from his Twitch channel is Kitboga. I've been watching a good bit of it. Very good stuff. We're big fans of prank phone calls, but yours are a little bit different.
Thank you, dude.
You're not
Next
a
level.
you're sort of pranking scamsters, like scam artists, right?
Yes. Yeah. From a range of like IRS tax fraud type people to the tech support stuff that you've probably seen, where they're like,
Yeah.
"You've got a virus on your computer."
Do you
Call
talk
us
to a lot of
now.
those like there is a problem with your Windows account, and then you have to, deal with that? Are they usually pretty resilient? Those Indian fellas? Yeah, I think so because they're one kick away from a sweatshop, right?
Oh, good. They definitely like. There's a different dynamic going on, and they seem to be fine with just like lying about anything. And some of my favorite moments are when we can insert anything we want into the conversation, and they're like, "Oh yes, absolutely," and like you have no clue.
Listen,
what
honey,
we're
I
talking
need your
about.
credit card information. Please, honey.
Like
Yeah.
I was watching the other night. You had 20,000 concurrent viewers. I was just watching it skyrocket up, and you got crazy numbers. You're on the front page of Twitch. It's the people at Twitch definitely like what you're doing. I think everybody does because you're going after the worst of the worst. These are the people who like prey on the old, the ignorant, people who don't really understand computers. If you miss, and I wanted to, we were talking about this before the show. I think this is Taylor's question, but I'll steal it. How do you find these people, these scamsters? Like you mentioned on the stream that sometimes if you type in a URL incorrectly, like a red page pops up and it's like, call this Microsoft support number, your computer's been locked, et cetera, et cetera. How are the other ways that they insert their scams, and like, what's the net they cast out?
Yeah, and it's always changing too, which is interesting for me. It's not like, oh, it's just one thing that happens every single time. One of the ways that they've done it too is they'll cold call you and they'll say your Microsoft activation key has expired. Or that's what the IRS folks do too. They say, we did an audit on your taxes and you're under arrest, basically.
The IRS often threatens arrest over the phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you gotten those calls? A lot of people have.
Yeah, I've gotten those, but it's not very convincing when it's like, I am with the IRS and you are under arrest. It's like, you're in New Delhi, motherfucker. Like,
I think they definitely target old people, like for sure. Target old people. And I imagine that's part of why I actually started, is because my grandmother kind of had some of that type of stuff happen. And, you get when you're 80 years old and someone's telling you barely understand taxes as it is, and someone's telling you we did an audit and you're under arrest, you might start to, yeah. Yeah.
oh, well, I thought I was doing so well. 87 years strong.
Right. Never had problems.
Discrepancy with your 1924 return. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, like let me dig that up from my file. I said that once. I was like, oh, let me pull up. I like opened my drawer and I'm like, let me get my taxes out, and they just click like, oh, this guy knows.
Shit.
This guy's got his taxes in front of him.
Yeah.
So how do you keep them on the line without, or I guess you're just giving them all bogus information, but it seems like after a couple questions, they'd like cut loose and try and find a real sucker.
Yeah, it depends. It's definitely evolved since I got started. So it's probably been, I was trying to figure this out before the show. It's probably been a year that I've been calling them, and 9 or so months that I've been on Twitch. And
you're pretty technologically advanced with it, though. I saw you're using a virtual machine for them to remotely operate. You've got a burner debit card, credit card for
a bunch of them. Yeah.
Like this is
I'm
high
just
up
impressed
stuff.
his audio doesn't suck. Like that's what blows me away. He does voices, old guys, women, whatever.
Yeah.
He'll be throwing an accent, and then the audio thing just like makes it that much better. Me, on the other hand, I don't want to talk about it.
We're really struggling with audio video around here. Okay, the combination of the two is a little bit
fine
much.
with video.
But,
yeah.
Be
Well,
nice.
of course. I mean, we would be
Video
a
is
great
the most
mime
important aspect of a podcast.
yeah, if we could mime.
Oh, it's tough. It definitely is too. I have 3 monitors and then a fourth like laptop when I have everything up
Oh, if more
'Cause I've got-
monitors would solve the problem, I would pick them up. It's no,
You
please.
just
what's
know
tough-
that at this
it's
point
tough.
you've been doing it long enough that in that giant, call center of Indians trying to scam elderly people, there's at least one dude assigned to watching Twitch now,
It's
who's
possible.
have to be like,
It's-
screaming
thing
out, "Hey, Koresh, get off that line! It's Kid again!"
Right. I think it's possible, but it's not just. I might be the only guy on Twitch doing it, but like there's other people that do this. You've probably seen it on like YouTube or different places. So
They get pissed. I've noticed. I don't know how the payment works for them. How many rupees they get every time they bamboozle some poor old man into signing away $10,000 for remote computer access repair. But it seems like they really want it badly, and that's the best part because you can push them to the limit. And if they think there's a chance that $10,000 are about to get wired to them, they just stick with it.
yes.
Right? It's like I liked the one the other day where you were like, I'm gonna mess this up. You were like at a store pretending like you were on the phone with Raymond or something like that, and you're like,
Oh, I just saw someone I know, and they think I'm talking to Raymond because I was pretending to. And
Yeah.
so you have to pretend to be Raymond. Okay, I'm gonna hand.
Yeah.
and you
Yes.
like hand
It
the
was
phone
so
to
good.
him, and you just change the voice modulation from old lady to like young girl, and you're like, hi, is this Raymond?
Yeah.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
I fucking love it. I wanted to talk about the voice modulation software or
Mhm.
setup that you're
Mhm.
using. What is that about? Because I'm interested in this now.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I never answered an original question though. So can I? Is it okay
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
go
yeah,
back for a
sorry.
second?
Yes.
And yeah, you had mentioned like how what lengths do they go to, and how do I keep them convinced that I'm someone they can scam?
Mhm.
And so the virtual machine is definitely part of it, and the voices is part of it. We can talk about that. But I do have just like tons of different personas and names, and like before a call, I'll start jotting down different addresses that lead to like the middle of nowhere or PO boxes, because I don't want to give like a real phone. We have our own like PBX, like our own calling systems, PBX stuff, where we just buy
Mhm.
blocks of numbers that aren't like some old lady in Timbuktu, because if sometimes they call back and they get angry, and I'm like, I don't want them. I'm not gonna use some other person's phone number, right?
Mhm.
And
Wow.
but
I
anyway,
wouldn't have even thought of that.
yeah, they get so. One night on stream, I was using a number that they could call me back on, because sometimes I don't give them. I use like non-working 555 stuff from the movies, right, where they
Mhm.
can't call you back. But one night, this guy just would not stop calling me, and it was kind of funny. But I was imagining some old lady who hangs up the phone, and they just call back again and again and again and again. But and then so as far as the voice modulation stuff, I don't use software. I tried a lot of different software. I use a Roland VT3. It's called. It's a voice transformer. Yeah, look, Google it.
You're doing
It's not-
so much better than us. We used to call like transvestite prostitutes just to like get them on the show and ask them what's up. But we'd use my personal cell phone number. They'd call back the next day, and I'm worried my wife is gonna get funny ideas.
You still interested, honey?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, and everyone's like looking at you funny. No, it's pretty cool. I mean, I think it was like $200 too. There's so much more like other things you can do, but it's not like part of it though. So I'll say that I don't know if I can do this. I could show you like how to do the grandma voice, if that's. But
Sure.
but
Yeah.
part of it is talking too, right? So
Mhm.
like the effect that I use, because you can have presets. So
This is the effect. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's like a raspy and weird.
but if I'm just talking like this, it doesn't sound like a grandma. So I actually have to say like, oh, I'm doing the Russian voice. It's pecans. I do like pecan sandies are my favorite thing to bake, you know. And so you have to kind of talk like,
You have to talk like that the whole time that you're doing the grandma voice, and then it sounds.
and
It
now
works.
it's through like VoIP connection, right? So it sounds bad on their end anyway,
Yeah.
and it works, and
Oh,
they
that's
fall,
fucking
they fall
hilarious. You
for
got
it.
your chin jutted out. Like,
I have
"What's
to,
the
I don't
go,
know."
Biddy?"
I
Oh,
don't
I
know what else
haven't
to
had
do.
a phone call in weeks.
How am
What
I
are
going
you-
to afford my Werther's originals now?
Where there's-
Those are
My-
pretty good.
My bowl is empty and my grandchildren are on the way.
Yeah. Sometimes I just try to think of the most ridiculous like things that my grandma or some grandma would say. Like, a reoccurring theme is like I had to walk uphill both ways to school and wear bread bags as shoes in the snow. Just like weird stuff. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I totally understand." And like, I'll show you.
Yes, I
Oh,
work
look
in
at who has a
street
school
of
to
shit
go to.
every day. At least you have a toilet.
Yeah. Oof. It's crazy though.
I
No, I
bathe
like
in a
that.
river with dead bodies. Yeah, it's becoming a little more happening there. But
Yeah,
what
I'm
other ones? What's your go-to favorite one? The old lady, because that's the one you busted
Well,
out, or
The old lady is like probably the most. I have like a 3.5 hour record with her where I just spent 3.5 hours with a couple different tech support guys, and I think it's the most. It's their target audience, right? That's who they want to scam is the old lady. But I like doing kind of this southern over exaggerated kind of accent where I just. I think that one's the most fun because I can just say like I'm a propane salesman, right? I'll sell propane and propane accessories, right?
And they don't get the reference.
No, that's the
Yeah, of course
thing
they
too.
don't.
That's the thing. Like there's so many jokes and memes and stuff. I can even be like, "Hey, have you been watching those dank memes lately?" And they're like, "What?" They don't know what a dank meme is. Like they don't. It's just like I just.
That old lady thing, I never knew how true it was. Like, that's a real problem. People, you don't know, but our audience does. My mother-in-law stayed with us for her last year, and she died just after Christmas or before. Anyway, she would send money at the end to anybody. She was so vulnerable. Like, she'd just get a letter and be like, "Oh, these some people who need money. Should I just send them some?" And it's like, no, like that. Words like gullible or easily fooled aren't very nice.
No, we want your money, Nana.
But
Wonder sign.
scam artists, I don't know how she got on these lists or what was happening, but God, I didn't realize people got vulnerable like that.
Oh yeah, it seems like the smart move if you're a scammer is to like find out the number for like hospice care and then just ask for like old soundy names. Like, is Edith available? I meant Ruth. I meant Edgar. I meant Ebenezer. Oh, Ebenezer's there. Perfect. Like, and then you talk to him. Oh, that's what I would do if I were in India.
Taylor's working on his plan.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in India. That's a pretty dope job.
You can do a decent Indian accent.
Do you have any more tips, Taylor, on how to scam the infirmed?
I don't know. I'll have to think through. I'm sure there are plenty. But I'm sure these Indians have figured them all out.
From the Indian Revenue Service.
Yeah, the Indian Revenue Service.
In the there you go, IRS. They do the Canadian Revenue Agency too. And the other day I answered and I thought it was an IRS number because someone submitted it to me. I think you guys asked how I get the numbers too, and I never fully answered that either. But some people do submit them now that the channel's grown. They'll say, "Hey, my grandma got this call" or whatever. And someone, I thought it was an IRS call, and I answered, and they said, I didn't hear him say Canadian Revenue Agency. And I said, I have a problem with my taxes, I guess. What happened? And they said, well, the Canadian Revenue Agency did it. And I cut him off. And I said, no, I'm in the United States. And they were like, no, you're under arrest by the Canadian government. And I'm like, I don't live in Canada. Like I wasn't trying to sell this lie that I was a Canadian. I was blatantly saying I don't live in Canada, and then they just kept going. And halfway, I'm like, you know what? That's fine. You can
send the Mounties.
You know how you know that wasn't the Canadian Revenue Service? Because you're like, no, I'm in the United States. So I'm in like, oh man, this is humiliating. Yeah. I'm getting off the phone. I'm so sorry. So sorry for the inconvenience. Yeah, that's not
a bad accent.
Taylor's great at accents.
Canadians are pretty easy. Yeah, but it's easy to like. You know, do you find that it's hard to stay in a lane with an accent? Because like I feel like after a couple minutes you just become a caricature, and then you're like talking like Firegool and like doing ridiculous exaggerate. But I guess they're Indian, and so they're not gonna, or most of them are. I'm assuming they're all Indian. What percentage of them are actually Indian?
Watch it. Most of them. Yeah? Most all of them. I mean, so the way I word it is I call the number on the pop-up, right? I call the number that was submitted to me. I never know who's going to answer, but 99% of the time it has been someone over in India, or at least it sounds like that. And I mean, I asked some friends who have relatives in India, or like, so I have like a programming software dev background, and I have some friends who like their wives are from India, and they go there to visit family and stuff. And they've mentioned that it's really easy for them to just spool up a call center over there, and this like students who can't find a job, that call center that's scamming people often is paying 3-4 times the amount that some other call center is, and they don't necessarily know what they're getting into at first. Sometimes I'm like, how do you not know? But
they know what they're getting into.
Maybe they don't know the conversion rate. Maybe they think that $9,000 to an American is no big deal.
Maybe. It's tough because so the Guardian, I don't know if I have the article. The Guardian did this article a while back. It's like from a couple months back, about how these students would actually go to like a headhunter type situation where they're saying, we're going to place you in a job. And they would show up and they'd actually pay money to this headhunter and potentially even be scammed themselves by the headhunter, and just tell them, hey, we found a great placement for you in a Microsoft call center or an IRS call center. So they interviewed this one student who got a job at the IRS call center. And he was told, we are being like the United States government is outsourcing stuff to us, and you're going to get a list of people to call who owe money on their taxes. And if they get angry, if they get sad and sound like they want to go through with this, transfer them to me because I'm a specialist or whatever. And it wasn't until later they realized, no, I'm definitely I'm definitely not working for the United States government. So it's a tough situation, I feel like. But